Yeah.
Um, and just I love history. So anything that could take me out of that space I was in, I would do. Even bullying other kids, it took me out that space. So anything to get me out the space, I did because of the pain and hurt. And I couldn't tell. And it was brutal. It was brutal. And I walked around often saying, is someone going to notice? I mean, it's like, who's going to notice? Who's going to notice? A little girl with a smell. I stunk. I smelled awful.
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible.
Mm.
I remember in school, my kindergarten teacher would ask me, because I spent 2 years in kindergarten, and my mother held me back, and she said, is there something you want to tell me? And I looked, and I was like, I can't tell this teacher. I can't. I couldn't tell her. And she was a much older teacher, older lady. She had to be in her 60s. So, yeah. So it was brutal.
So what do you think she noticed to come and ask you about that? Were there certain things that you think maybe she was clued in on?
I think looking back, she seen my behavior. I was nervous. I couldn't concentrate, right? And I would come in and just do mean things. Now I remember this like it was yesterday, and that's the crazy thing about it, is that I remember everything, and I can recite it like I'm reciting the national anthem, and this went on for 3 years of my life, and it was brutal, brutal. So because I've been talking to, since high school, I've been talking to countless young girls, boys, men, women. God has given me the strength to somehow be able to do this. And sometimes I don't understand it myself. I just know that it is something that I need to do, because I just spoke with a young girl last week who wanted to commit suicide. And not knowing, but I knew it. I have this thing about me where I can talk with someone, like, I can just have a casual conversation or a deep conversation with someone. And it's a feeling that comes over me. You just know, from one victim to the other. For me, you just know. And I knew, and I allowed her to talk. It's like allowing people to talk and get it out. And she was able to tell me, just with one question, so what did you mean by when you said this? It's how you talk with them, victims, and who has never told anyone, who has maybe told one person at one point in time in their life and never have discussed it again. So I'm really good at that. So I've been doing this for many years, and it makes me feel better sometimes, talking to victims, because they're basically a lot of times telling my story. Like,
what's that like when you
hear
them? Yeah. I mean, what's that like when they're telling their story and you're talking about, like, hey, I feel like you're telling my story. I mean, what's that like for you?
It becomes easier for me. It becomes easier because you see that, for one, you're not the only one, right?
Mm.
You're not the
Yeah.
only one. And oftentimes, they're telling the same thing that happened to you. Being
Yeah.
afraid, not allowed to tell, being scared, the feeling, uh, when it happened, oftentimes the penetration for some people when they talk to me. And it's like, wow, I thought I was the only one who went through this. So then I'm able to tell them how I cope. And it's talking and telling my story. I'm like an open book. I've always been. With this, I have been.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Mm.
So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really, really powerful, Ronnie, and what you're able to do, and just like what I see with a lot of sibling sexual abuse survivors, it lasts for quite a while, and that's what's happened, like in your situation when you talk about your abuse going on for 3 years, and but yeah, I mean, we talk about sexual abuse, and one, like what you said, just one instance is incredibly life changing and traumatic, but when it goes on and on and on like that, I mean, it's just, to me, it's really a marvel how well you're doing, and just the comfort that you're able to provide. And I think that's really incredible. And different survivors I talk to, I love hearing that. Like what you're having to say is, hey, I feel like God's called me to this. I don't think there's any question about that. And it just I don't want to say relief, or put words in your mouth, but just the feeling of uplift that you get as you're helping, these people I can't imagine, kind of revealing this to you where they really haven't revealed it in depth to anyone in their lives, and just feeling that instant kind of connection because and they know, and you speak a different language than what the rest of us, do when it
Right.
comes to that.
And what I'm always open with is with victims, any victim, it could be a smell that will change your whole day. Maybe your week, right? A touch.
Wow.
Someone can touch you, and it's an instant like, and a lot of times I have learned I'm able, the majority of time, to gather and say, you're okay. Your victims are constantly they have to talk to themselves. Am I doing something wrong? Even now, I still go through times where I'll smell him. It's a smell. It's a touch.
Wow.
It's how the wind blows. This is mental, right? And people often don't understand the mental part of it because it's mental, right? And it doesn't mean you're crazy. It's trauma, right? It's like CTE,
Yeah.
and people don't always understand CTE, right? It's real.
Yeah.
And for sexual abuse survivors, it's so real, yet it's so ignored. And people suffer immensely because